On this episode of the Missouri State Parks Podcast, we talk about summertime events and learn about some of the famous Missouri families that called Missouri state parks and historic sites home. Welcome to the Missouri State Parks Podcast. My name is Mike Boozy Cruz, and I am the superintendent here at the Nathan and Olive Boone Homestead State Historic Site. And today on the podcast, we are joined by Dawn Fredrickson and Allison Dubert from our Grants Recreation and Interpretation Program. And we're here today to talk about spring and summer in Missouri State Parks. What a great time to get out and explore, have an adventure, go to an event, go camping. It's such a great time to make memories in Missouri State Parks. And our parks and historic sites, as we've talked about on some of our past episodes of the podcast, have been helping our families make memories for more than 100 years since its founding in the 1920s. And as I was preparing for this podcast today, I was trying to recall my first visit to a Missouri State Park. And I had to think real hard about this. And Dawn and Allison, I'm going to get your guys' take on this here too. But I believe my first visit to a Missouri State Park took place in the summer of 1990. I was in second grade, and it was to Quiver River State Park. And my dad and I went fishing at Lake Lincoln. And I remember, that was really my first exposure to a state park. I remember going in the main entrance to Quiver River, and there's that stone bridge, that CCC era bridge, and the beautiful woodlands that surround that, and driving to the park. And I remember being so excited that Quiver River was essentially in our backyard. And we went fishing at that lake, my dad and I, all the way through college, all the way until our family left Troy a few years ago. So that was really my first time ever visiting a state park. Allison, do you remember your first time visiting a Missouri State Park?
I don't exactly remember my first time. I remember going to state parks all the time growing up. We lived in Columbia, so we had Rock Ridge Memorial State Park right there, practically in our backyard. I remember in seventh grade, our class orienteering trip getting lost, and that was super fun. But, and we went to a lot of parks throughout Missouri growing up. We always said that our family didn't take vacations, we took field trips. And my dad was a big historian, so we always went to historic sites too. Probably, though, my most memorable visit was recently. My little family, we went camping at Knob Noster, and it was actually my first time at Knob Noster State Park. And we just had a wonderful, wonderful time experiencing the park, and we did all that they had to offer. And just randomly, the interpreter there was doing an early morning bird survey, and she invited us along to that, and we went, and I have been hooked on birding ever since that. So really, Knob Noster started my infatuation with birds, and so it's a really special memory for me. And you never know what new experiences you'll have at a state park, and that's pretty cool. Yeah,
definitely. Dawn, do you have a memory of a first visit or a special memory from Missouri State Parks?
I do. I'm like Allison in that I don't remember my first visit, but I was one of 4 kids growing up, so we didn't have a whole lot of money, and so that's what we did for summer vacations, was spend all of our summers in Missouri State Parks and historic sites. And my family would do regions. So one year we would go down into the southeast Missouri and we'd do all the parks in southeast Missouri, like Johnson Shut-In State Park, Elephant Rocks, Battle of Pilot Knob. What was most memorable for us, though, was that when we would start smelling the sourdough starter at home, we knew that it was camping season, because we would always have that very first night, and when we camped, we would have Dutch oven stew and sourdough biscuits for dinner. And it was the kids' job, our job, to set up camp. So we set up the tent, put out the chairs, got everything all organized while my parents were cooking dinner. And we could smell dinner cooking while we were setting up camp. And awesome. We were just so hungry. And so we always knew camping season was right around the corner when they would get that sourdough starter going about 3 weeks ahead of time. One of my most fun memories, though, was camping at Washington State Park. And this time we didn't camp. We actually splurged on a cabin at Washington. And it was when I call them the new cabins were built. And we stayed in one of the new cabins. And then I got to thinking about that. That was probably when I was 15 or 16, so that was more than 30 years ago. So they're not new cabins anymore, but I still refer to them as the new cabins.
And, that's one of the things I think that's so great about Missouri State Parks is that, they're places that are preserved in perpetuity, and the memories that I have as a kid fishing, that, you have at camping and the new cabins, we can still go back to those places. And, I think back to Trout Opener just last month, and I was talking to a gentleman at opening day, and his family had been coming there for 47 years.
Oh, wow.
And I think it's amazing that you can come to a Missouri State Park and the experiences, someone had generations ago, you can still have, and you can still relive those experiences and those memories. And that's something that's tough, I think, sometimes in this day and age when everything's so constantly changing and evolving. That state parks in general are great places to go, that they don't change a ton, and where you can still experience those generational memories. And I think that's pretty neat. One of the things that we often don't think about is that some of our parks and historic sites were home to families before we know them as the parks that we do today. Take, for instance, we're here today at the Nathan and Olive Boone Homestead State Historic Site that Nathan and Olive Boone called home. But we have families spanning generations that have called the Boone Homestead home. It's always such a great privilege to me when families come into the park and share those stories with us. They'll share family pictures with us. It really helps to reinforce the fact that the Boone Homestead has been occupied by families for more than 130 years before it became a state historic site. I think that's one of the exciting things for me as the superintendent here is that we're learning so much, not only about the Boones, but about other families that have called this place home. And that story really does continue across our state parks and historic sites. At Mark Twain Birthplace State Historic Site, you can see the cabin where the Twain family lived in the early 19th century and where Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Missouri's own Mark Twain, was born. In Lamar, you can see the modest home where John and Martha Truman welcomed the future President Harry Truman into the world. And visitors to Sappington Cemetery State Historic Site, they can learn the stories of the generations of Black Americans that called Saline County and Arrow Rock their home. And if you listen to the last podcast, we talked a little bit about the community of Bryce, Missouri, where Bennett Springs is today. And at Bryce, it was a thriving community that thrived around the mill there at Bennett Springs and around the spring there at Bennett Springs. And you can think about all the families that gathered for generations in Bryce and around the mill. And a fun fact for our listeners, Harold Bell Wright, who you may know as the author of the best-selling book Shepherd of the Hills, used Bryce, Missouri as the setting for the sequel to his Shepherd of the Hills book, and it was titled The Calling of Dan Matthews. And even, we think of pre-settlement Missouri, visitors to Tausagi State Historic Site can see evidence of a former Mississippian village and civic ceremonial center that dates to between AD 1000 to 1400. And the family ties to Missouri state parks run extremely deep. I mean, I think it'd be challenging to go into any Missouri state park and not be able to dig out a family story from that park, whether it was from before it was a park or now that, families have been enjoying Missouri state parks for more than 100 years. And really, there are programs that take place in Missouri state parks not all summer long. And I think one of the exciting things that we do as a state park system is the Learn To programs. So, Allison, tell us a little bit about the Learn To programs that we're offering in state parks.
Oh, sure. So we have my personal favorite, which is Learn To Aim, which is we teach people how to shoot archery and throw atlatls, which if you're not familiar with what an atlatl is, it's really a prehistoric weapon that was used for hunting. It's like a spear, and you have
A chuck and stick.
A chuck and stick, yeah. That allows you to throw that spear really further than you could physics with than just with your arm. I am excellent at archery. At Lattle, not so much, but it's super fun. So that's our Learn to Aim program, and then we also have a Learn to Paddle program to teach people how to safely kayak. Those events happen, throughout the summer at various parks and sites. And again, if you go to that Things to Do button on our website, you can find those programs.
And we provide all the equipment
Yes.
for those programs, correct?
Yes, and all of the instructors are certified instructors. We have certified kayak instructors who teach those classes, and they show you how to put on a life vest safely, and then we have certified archery instructors as well.
And, what a great program that, families can sign up for. They can show up to a park or site. All the equipment's there.
Yeah.
We've got some great instructors that run those programs. And, when you finish with those programs, you have such a great beginning knowledge
Yes.
of those sports. That it's a pretty neat program that we offer through state parks. And that kind of leads into our Women in Nature programs as well that take place throughout the summer.
So the Women in Nature programs are designed specifically for women. So it's a comfortable group. They're taught by women. They do a lot of the same activities that the Learn to programs do. They'll do archery or Learn to Paddle, that sort of thing. But it's specifically designed for women. And they're also throughout the state throughout the summer. So.
Yeah, and I think the neat thing about the Women in Nature programs too is it's such a great program, but it also travels,
Yes.
across the state. Prairie State Park is going to be hosting a Women in Nature program coming up. So think about not only the programs that you get to do, but the different, natural and cultural environments that you can experience those within. So it's a pretty neat thing for,
Right.
If someone wants to sign up and they wanted to try something new, they could also try it in a new environment. Maybe they've never been out to the prairie and they want to see, Missouri's largest continuous tallgrass prairie. It's a great place to go out and not only try something new, but see something new at the same time.
Right. And a lot of those Women in Nature programs, they don't do the same thing at each one. For example, the one at Prairie, I think that they're doing a women-led hike, and then they're also going to do a nature journaling program with that. So,
Awesome.
Which is a little bit different than some of the other Women in Nature programs. Also want to talk about our Explorer program, which is a great program for families. It's sort of targeted for kids, but hey, adults can do it too. You can earn a physical patch that you can put on your jacket or backpack or whatever. And there's the first patch you earn is a big patch, and then we have stars, so you can do the program over and over and over again. And what it is you there are 3 parts. You do an interpretive study. So you work with an interpretive staff member to draw a map of the park or talk about a plant or animal. So there's various things you can do. And then you also, to earn your patch, attend at least 3 interpretive programs. And these can be at the same park. So if you have a local park, you can go over and over again to that park, or you can go to other parks as well. So they don't have to be in the same park. And then the last part to earn your Explorer program badge is there's an identification part. So identify 10 important things, so objects or people or whatever, and give the name of each of those things and why it's important to the park or site. And so there again, you work with the interpreter at the site, and they help you through that identification program, and you can earn a patch, kind of a badge.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, you can do it over and over again, and you get stars for each one you do. So,
And what a great program to I think sometimes when people come to a park or historic site, they go and they've been there once and they think they've seen everything. Mm-hmm. But to go and experience something new when you think you've seen everything, to try something new, right. Or, maybe you're spending the weekend at a state park at a campground. Right. It's a great opportunity for a family to get into the nature center, to go to an interpretive program, and to experience some different things that maybe they wouldn't normally try, or they wouldn't normally experience. And there's so many great things that are part of that Explore program. If people are interested in partaking in the Explore program, check in with the site's interpreters.
Yeah, at the visitor center, if there's a visitor center, there's yellow cards in the brochure rack. There should be, that talks about the Explore program, and it's also on our website. But the actual person would be the interpreter, or any of the park staff can help you with that, or awesome. Get you to the right person at that particular park.
I will say that there are several parks and sites that actually schedule specific events so that kids can achieve their Explore patches.
Yeah.
And it's a really great program to do individually, but I have noticed that, like, say church youth groups or scout groups or other youth groups kind of do it together, and then they earn their badges kind of all together.
Yeah. What a great idea. Yeah. So if you're interested in the Explore program, jump onto moststateparks.com, or the next time you're at a park or historic site, pop in the office or a nature center, look for those cards, or look for the interpreters, or really ask any of the park staff and they can get you pointed in the right direction. Yeah. So, Allison, we've got kind of a unique event, and kind of a first-time event, at least that I've ever seen, coming up here. In just a few weeks, on June 11th, in Lebanon, we have Nature's Impact on Mental Health. Can you tell us a little bit about that event?
Absolutely. So we have partnered with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the Missouri Department of Mental Health, and Lane Change of Lebanon to have this free program. It's going to be at the exchange at Wall Street Cattle Company, and there's going to be speakers and a bunch of activities, like I know they're going to do like fishing and archery, probably geocaching, and there's going to be free snacks and all sorts of fun in the outdoors, that's really focused on how getting outside can improve your mental health, and so this is a really exciting event. Yeah. And you're right, it is the first one. So
yeah, and parks and historic sites are great places for people to go and check out and experience nature, and what a great thing to help improve mental health, and exciting to see an event of this type popping up. And we've got some other events coming.
I do have another event that I'm so excited to talk about, and it's because it's pretty historic, but it's not really well known. In history books, you probably would never have seen this, but this is the 125th anniversary of the Iron Riders event, and this is why it's exciting to me. So in 1897, this was kind of during the big bicycle craze in the United States. The U.S. Army, they wanted to explore to see whether bicycles could be used as a way for troop movement, because during 1897, the way everybody got around was horses and wagons.
Right.
And so they really wanted to kind of say, let's try to experiment with this. And in Missoula, Montana, at Fort Missoula, there was a white Army officer, Lieutenant Moss, who was a huge bicycle advocate. I mean, he just loved everything bikes. He commanded a unit of all African American soldiers, and this was the 25th Infantry. And he said, "I volunteer. We're gonna do this. We're gonna experiment." And he asked his unit for volunteers. And over 40 soldiers, some of them who had never ridden a bike before, volunteered and said, "Whatever you got, we're in." And they did this epic 1,900-mile bike ride from Missoula, Montana to St. Louis, Missouri, in June and July. Now, can you imagine riding in Missouri on a 1-speed heavy bicycle that's probably about 50 pounds
In the heat of
with
summer.
in the heat of the summer with
With
all of your
equipment.
gear, because they were
Yeah.
carrying their gear on railroad beds and dirt roads and whatever was available. And the historic route that they took in Missouri basically paralleled what we know as Highway 36 in northern Missouri.
Okay.
And so we're doing a series of events to commemorate the historic route and the historic ride. And so on July, I think it's 17th, yes, July 17th, we're going to be hosting a kickoff event at Big Lake State Park, because where the troops crossed the Missouri River from Nebraska, from Rulo, Nebraska, over into Missouri, was right there, right around Big Lake State Park. And so we'll be doing a big event on Saturday, July 17th, there at Big Lake. There'll be family fun activities. There'll be interpretation, and there'll be a replica bicycle and a replica Buffalo Soldiers uniform. And then on Tuesday, the following Tuesday, which is the 19th?
I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be doing an event at Pershing Boyhood Home, State Historic Site in Laclede, Missouri, which is really cool because Fort Morgan was right there in Laclede, just maybe a couple blocks from the Pershing Boyhood Home, and that's where they camped for that night.
Awesome.
And then Thursday, we'll be doing an event in Monroe City. And then the following Sunday, which is July 24th, we'll be doing a finale event in Forest Park in St. Louis, because that's where the soldiers rode to this great fanfare, and lots of cyclists came out to welcome them into the town. And so we're going to have our finale at Forest Park. So we're partnering with Lincoln University in Jefferson City. We're partnering with the Buffalo Soldiers Organization, the Los Angeles chapter, as well as Monroe City and the Missouri History Museum in Forest Park to kind of celebrate this. And so I'm so excited.
Man, sounds like a great event.
about this. Yeah.
And such a great way to commemorate a very unique piece of Missouri history. So very cool.
These were, if you stop and think about it, these were literally the first mountain bikers.
Yeah.
Because if you stop and think about how they rode from Missoula, Montana, from the mountains down into Missouri. So
Very
cool. they were the mountain bikers before mountain biking was cool.
Or really, roads were cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got kids free fishing days coming up at our trout parks, and those will take place at various dates throughout the summer. And those are if our viewers, listeners have never been to a kids free fishing day at one of our trout parks, it's a great partnership program with the Missouri Department of Conservation in our parks, where they have various activities. The streams get stocked with some bigger fish for the kids to fish out. It's really a great time to introduce kids to the sport of fishing and trout fishing, and really get them hooked on one of those life skills. And it looks like on September 10th and 11th, we have Girl Scouts Love Parks coming up, and we have any events scheduled for that.
We don't have any specific events yet, but we are partnering with the Girl Scouts organizations to bring Girl Scouts to our parks. We're still working on those plans, but that will be September 10th and 11th. So stay tuned for if you have a Girl Scout in your family, for Girl Scouts Love State Parks. So that's...
And September 18th is Museum Day. And can you tell us a little about Museum Day?
So this is a partnership with Smithsonian, and they participating museums provide free entry into their museums if they have a fee. So usually for our sites that have fees, we waive those sites for Museum Day.
Yeah, so a great opportunity, for families to get out to a site, a museum, just try something new. There's no cost involved that day. So if museums aren't your things and you want to try them that day, it's great to get out that day and see if maybe we can get you interested in history. And so, one of the other things that is great about summer in state parks is campground programs. So if you're camping out at one of our state parks or historic sites, generally in the evenings in the amphitheaters, we have campground programs.
Yeah, and it depends on the site and the night and the theme, but they do all sorts of different topics. If you want to, some of those topics could be snakes or pollinators.
Seems like bats are all
bats
over
are
the program
popular.
even,
Yeah. So the topics vary, but they're always lots of fun and really cool programs. Sometimes they bring in like the World Bird Sanctuary and have a raptor program.
Yeah, when you're camping out in those campgrounds, you're around the parks and sites, I think some of the best ways to find out about those programs, just pay attention to the kiosks and the bulletin boards and kind of look for those kind of park evening programs. And they're great programs. And once again, too, stop into a nature center, ask your staff at the offices about those programs as you're arriving.
Yeah, they're great and always lots of fun and interesting.
And the state fair's coming up, and the Missouri State Parks always has a presence at the State Fair. You want to tell us a little about what goes on at the State Fair?
Sure. So we are, the Department of Natural Resources has the Women's Building, and so we, as part of the Department of Natural Resources, have a big presence. So usually we have interpreters on the front lawn of the Women's Building doing all sorts of activities. In the past, we've done like rope making. We've talked about geocaching. There's usually somebody who brings some snakes, or astronomy. It just depends on what's going on. But those are always really popular, and people get to touch furs and who knows what else. And then inside the building, there are also there's all sorts of information about Missouri State Parks. If you want a Missouri State Park map, that's the place to get one.
Yep, and you can get out and see our rangers and their patrol cars and all the cool equipment they have, and get the Junior Ranger badges. So it's always a fun time at the Missouri State Fair and the Department of Natural Resources booth there. So definitely worth checking out. So, kind of in closing to wrap up the podcast here, there's absolutely no reason, I think, to be bored this summer with everything that's going on in Missouri State Parks. And we'd encourage everybody to jump on to mostateparks.com and to find that button at the top of the page, that Things to Do button. So many great things for families to do to experience in Missouri State Parks this summer. And on the website, too, you can find the hours for all your parks. You can find rental information there for the kayaks and the bikes and everything that you can rent in Missouri State Parks. You can schedule tours online even. Now that's a brand new thing. And the other thing I'd encourage everyone to do, too, is just to follow us on social media. If that's where those incidental things pop up. You're bored, you're scrolling through social media, you're looking for something to do for the weekend, pop over to the Missouri State Parks Facebook page and see what's going on in Missouri State Parks. Huge thanks to Dawn and Allison for joining me today on the State Parks podcast. I'd like to encourage all of our listeners to get out this summer and visit a park you've never been to, or go back to that park that you had been to in the past and relive some of those old memories or traditions. And as always, remember, you're always welcome in Missouri State Parks.